This may end up being one of the most expensive recipes I've ever done. And it's not just this recipe, the ultimate seafood callaloo. I am pairing it. I'm going to have it, my starch to go with this. It's a combination of ground provisions. So I bought some yam, some eddos, and some sweet potato. And I kid you not, those three things came up to almost $30. Then we have this assortment of seafood here. I've got some Alaskan crab legs, some wild caught Argentinian shrimp, and a couple lobsters. What we need to do, and we're going to start off with this step first. I'm going to use the shell from the lobster and the shrimp to create a stock to flavor the callaloo. Yeah, this is going to be a long recipe. There's no two ways about it, but I really want to focus on showing you all the steps to make sure, you know, it's expensive, so we don't want to fool around with it. The crab legs, all I did was I rinsed it in cold water and lime juice. I gave it a good scrub down, and there's nothing else really to do unless I may hit the claw part here, just to crack it a little to make sure some of that flavor comes out and stuff like that. But the crab legs are all good. With the lobster and the shrimp, I'll just quickly show you with the shrimp. Just grab one. We're just going to pull back. We're going to rinse this out, but we're going to use the heads, and then we're going to peel back all of the, let me just get rid of the yucky stuff. We're just going to peel back all of the shell off the shrimp, like so. Just pull it back. And I have a video on the Food FAQ channel. It's a little bit stubborn, but we'll get to it. I'm just going to put it in the sink for now, but I will use all of that. I'm going to give it a rinse, and then we're going to use it. And I'm going to remove the tail parts as well. Kind of wasted a piece of shrimp there, but small thing. And then what you're going to do is take a sharp paring knife, and this is the top part. So if the shrimp was like this, this is the top part here. You would take a sharp paring knife and you would give it a cut, and you need to remove this line, what they say is the intestines. Yeah, we're going to remove that, discard it, and that's going to go into the rubbish. But that's the sort of step we're going to do with the shrimp. As far as the lobster is concerned, just going to break that back. I want the big claws out, so that's going to go there. This can go here. I'm just going to give this a good rinse, and this is going to go into the stock. What I'm going to do here is take the meat off, take the shell off, and that's going to go. I'm going to use the scissors. I'm going to give it a cut, pull the meat out, rinse off all that green stuff, and the meat is going to be used later on. So too the shrimp. I've got my stock pot, well, not my big one, my smaller stock pot on a medium flame, and to that we're going to add a couple tablespoons of butter. Just move that around a little bit, and right away as it starts coming up to temperature, we're going to add a medium onion to the pot. And I just went out in the backyard. I got some fresh thyme. Just going to give that a little rip, like so. I've got some fresh parsley. Just going to break that up like so. Turn my heat down to medium low. I don't want to burn anything. And I've also got the tops of celery, the leaves. And if you're from the Caribbean, you know we use that as well too in all sort of marinades and all that stuff like that. I also want about 4 cloves of garlic in there. I'm just smashing it with a knife, like so. Boom, that's all gonna go in there. That's gonna create all kind of niceties. Crushed ground black pepper. And we're gonna hit that to stir. Let that butter melt. We're going to turn our heat down to low and let that sweat down just for about 4 or 5 minutes until we pull out some of that lovely flavor. Next up, we're going to add all of the shells in there, and we're going to hit that to stir just to combine everything. We won't add any liquid yet. We're just going to keep that going there just for another 5 minutes before we add the liquid. But make sure you give it a good stir. A good indicator that it's time to move on is when you see the lobster head and the shell starting to go that beautiful red color. Now is when we're gonna add a bit of sea salt and water. I'm just gonna add a bit more water in there. And we're gonna bring it up to a boil, then we're gonna reduce it to a rolling boil and let it go to pull out all those wicked flavors. I'm filming now, you gotta be quiet, okay? It took about 4 minutes. It's come up to that boil. It was more rapid than that. I turned it down. So now it's on a rolling boil. What I'm gonna do is give it a quick little stir. And I'm gonna move it to another burner because we're gonna have to start the actual callaloo now with all the spinach and everything else. Like I said, 45-50 minutes, anywhere around there. And that's why we added so much water. I think I added anywhere from 8 to 10 cups of water. Closer to 8 cups of water I have in there. And I just wanted to reduce, and it's going to concentrate in flavor. Later on we'll strain it and we will add that lovely shrimp / lobster stock to the callaloo. You feel me? You feel me? Uncle Chris excited, you know. Eating good tonight, royalty kind of thing. Allow me to show you a few more of the ingredients going into the callaloo. Another medium onion. We've got some garlic. I've got here about 20 okra, or okra, however you call it. And this is the length. I cut the head off and I just cut them up into about 1-inch pieces. Give it a good wash, blah, blah, blah. Traditional Trinidad and Tobago, I believe Grenada, Antigua, St. Lucia. We use dashing bush or taro leaves. It is not in the greatest condition. I'm based in Canada, and while I paid premium for it, I would, let's look at that. I have no choice. I'll be using that, yeah? What I'll do is I'll trim off all of these, like the ones that's kind of disintegrating there on me. And all you want to do, this is what it looks like. We're just going to pull back on the stems, give it a good wash, and then we're going to pull back on the stems, and then we're going to roll it up like so. We're going to put about 5 or 10 of them together, and then we're going to chop them into ribbons about 1/2 inch. I was just about to say centimeter, but I'm only going to strafe between centimeter and inches and all kind of thing like that. So that is what's going to happen. I may include some of the stems. If you do decide to use the stems, you want to give it a trim, you can chop it up like that. But I'm on old school. The way I grew up doing it is pulling back on there, and you're going to toss this out. That takes long to break down, yeah? So by doing so, it helps it cook quicker. And then all you would do is small pieces, maybe about 1 inch or so. Yeah? Just gonna put that in here. I don't have enough for the amount of callaloo that I want to make because I have quite a bit of seafood there. So I've got 2 bundles of spinach, regular North American spinach. So if you want it, and you know, here's the thing, because I'm based in Canada, for the most part I always make my callaloo with spinach. So another thing you want to give a good wash to. Let's open it up and see beautiful leaves of spinach. Give that a wash, give that a rough chop as well, and have it prepped and ready. There's nothing wrong. Don't be fooled. People will say, "Ah, she making callaloo with spinach." Listen, Norma, you need to stop with them. Look here, spinach makes excellent, not the tough leaves. Baby spinach. Let me correct myself. Baby spinach makes excellent callaloo. I find the more mature the leaves are, yeah, a bitter tasty. We want that. We'll also need some pumpkin, some coconut milk, but we'll get to that. I'm just gonna prep all of this now. Stock has been going for about 30 minutes now. I'm gonna give it another 15 minutes. You can see we started off with a higher level of water. It's already reduced by about 1/3. I'm gonna further reduce that down for another 15 minutes. Then I'm gonna strain it, discard everything that's there, except for the liquid. The liquid is going to go into the callaloo. I've got everything prepped and ready to go. So we've got the okra or the okra, depending on how you call it, the onion. I've got a green Scotch bonnet pepper. I would recommend floating it in there and later on removing it. I will burst it because I want that fire, I want that kick. I've got some more garlic. Luckily, it's summertime here in Canada, so I have my pimento pepper. If you can't get pimento pepper, or it's called a seasoning pepper, there's absolutely no heat to it. Well, the odd time there can be heat to it, but it adds a wonderful flavor to everything. If you can't get it, don't worry too much about it. We have enough going on here that will pull a lot of flavor. I've got pumpkin, and of course I've got all the dashing bush leaves along with the baby spinach and some of the stems all prepped. You know, like I said, you trim it, you wash it, you chop it up into ribbons, like you know, you fold it up like a cigar and you chop it up. I also included some of the stems just to show you that you can use it. You know, one of the inconveniences of being in a small home kitchen is that you really don't have room, so everything is very slow, very methodical and stuff like that. I wish, you know, one day God will bless me and I will have a studio kitchen, and at that point you guys are gonna be, boy, some wicked recipes I'll drop on you all. Anyhow, nice big pot, heavy pot, your big soup pot, whatever you have. This may end up being too small for me, but small thing, we'll organize. I'm gonna go in with 2 tablespoons of oil. And today I am using a grapeseed oil, but it's only because I don't have any olive oil in the cupboard, and olive oil is expensive these days, boys. So I'm just gonna hit that a little, move around there. My heat is on medium. In goes the onion and the garlic. Just gonna turn my heat down to low because I don't want to burn anything. And I'm starting it totally different than how your mommy probably starts her callaloo. She probably just puts everything in the pot and boils it. You know, I've talked about this, and I have several callaloo recipes on caribbeanpot.com. It's just so happened the ultimate seafood one that you're seeing here is my first time. I do have a lobster one, I do have a shrimp one, I do have a crab one, I do have a salted pigtail, I do have a vegan. Listen, everyone's way of doing things will be different, but it just makes sense that if you add a little bit of oil to the pot, you add your sort of aromatics. Badawi, I borrow your word there for a second. Badawi is over at Eater Food. It just makes sense for me to warm it through, and this is why if you go back to watch all my old recipes, you will see me always add the onion and garlic and stuff like that in some oil first, just to pull out some flavor. As the onion and garlic softens up in that bit of oil that we have there, fresh ground black pepper. And again, it's all about building that foundation of flavor. And I've got the pimento pepper that I chopped up into, you know, rough chop. Now earlier I said the odd time they may be hot, and that is what happens is if it's planted close, if the pimento peppers are planted close to a field where there are Scotch bonnet or habanero or whatever, when it cross-pollinates, when little bees and little butterflies and insects go and they do the little thing on top of the beautiful flowers and stigma and all kind of thing like that, what happens is it can potentially make the pimento pepper spicy. And add the pumpkin to the pot, followed by the okra. I keep saying okra because that's just the way I learned saying it as a kid. The correct way, according to the way it's spelled, it's okra, yeah? We're gonna hit that to stir, like so. Turn my heat back up to medium-high, and I'm gonna start adding the spinach along with the dashing bush into the pot. And I know my African brothers and sisters are watching this and they're like, yo, we know that dish. Yeah, it's very similar to some of the dishes in West Africa. Yeah. This is going to wilt down, so don't fret too much at this point. What I'm going to do is put the lid on. It's going to wilt down, and I'm just going to keep adding more of that spinach dashing bush. Dashing bush is also called taro. One other thing I must mention. The leaves, the dashing bush leaves that I have here, they're terrible. They will never be used in the Caribbean. Well, two things I have to mention. One, we will use the baby leaves, so while it's still curled up, it's usually curled, that is the best leaves for making callaloo, nice and tender. The second thing is, you saw me, I don't know, well, you didn't see me, but I handled it with my bare hands. Potentially, if you're using fresh dasheen bush or taro leaves, it may cause your hands to be irritated and start to itch. So, two things you can do: one, wear gloves, or two, coat your hands and just get some olive oil or some vegetable oil and coat your hands with some oil to create a sort of protective barrier to avoid you having to deal with that irritation. Keeping in mind that we added salt to the stock earlier, what I'm going to do is add some now, and later on we will adjust that accordingly. It's been about 5 minutes and you can see how quickly things started to wilt down. Just going to hit that another stir. What I must mention is, earlier when you saw me speak about the Alaskan crab legs, that was 2 pounds of Alaskan crab legs. What I decided to do was I'll only add 1 pound of it because my pot isn't the biggest. Plus there's a recipe I want to do. By the way, I added 1 pound of the shrimp as well too. So I have a pound of shrimp left and a pound of crab legs left. I want to do a curry dish outside. It's summertime, so we'll rock that at some point. Now we've got the claws of the lobster. Just gonna toss that in there. We've got the crab legs with the claws. Just gonna toss that in there. See what I'm talking about, being the pot being too large. And some more of that. Boom, bam, boom. Everything tucked in nicely. In goes the coconut milk, and that is coconut milk from a can. That is 1.5 cups of coconut milk. That lovely stock, just trying to be careful here, that we created earlier. Try and tuck everything down, scrape the bottom of the pot there, move up the spinach and everything, like so. And traditionally, the traditional way of making callaloo, now we should have addressed something from the very start. Well, 2 things we should have addressed at the very start. 1, do not come and watch this knowing there is okra in it and saying, yeah, everything minus that okra because that thing too slimy. If you don't like okra, yo, this video is not for you. Move on, press on. The second thing is, my Jamaican brothers and sisters, what they call callaloo is a plant that they cook with salted cod. Jamaican callaloo and saltfish is a very tasty dish. I've made it several times. We don't call it Jamaican callaloo. We call that chorai bhaji or spinach. Our version in the Southern Caribbean of callaloo is what you're seeing here. The whole idea now is to bring this up to a boil, and then we're going to allow it to reduce down and break up everything, and it's like a nice big lovely soup. But before we do, we've got to tuck that Scotch bonnet pepper in there. Remember, whilst this is cooking, it will take about an hour or so. Try not to break it. I will purposely break it, but if you break it, you will release that heat. Just be mindful of that. It's going to come up to a boil, as I said. Once it comes up to a boil, I'm going to put the lid on, boom, and I'm going to move it so there's about 1/2 inch there. Yeah. You understand? The callaloo, which is in the pot there, has been going for 1.5 hours. 1.5 hours, so 90 minutes. I just took the shrimp and the lobster back out of the fridge, and what we want to do is give it a quick season. And when I say season, I mean with some Caribbean green seasoning, a little bit of salt, and some lemon juice. That's it. Nothing, over the top. The shrimp, I'm just going to leave whole, so you're going to get nice big pieces of shrimp. But the lobster, what I'm going to do is pretty much cut it down the center and cut it up into chunks. So we've got 4 pieces there. This one, I'm going to get 3 pieces out of it. The other one, same thing, we're just going to hit that a rough chop. so. So we've got all of that shrimp and lobster in there now. So there is that little touch of lemon juice just to kill some of the overly fishy taste. I find wild caught shrimp tends to be a bit strong in flavor. My Caribbean green seasoning, you can head over to caribbeanpot.com. I just updated the recipe on there for you all. And all we want is about a teaspoon of that Caribbean green seasoning. If you wanted to add some black pepper to that, you can certainly do that. And Caribbean green seasoning, you see it in this little reusable container. Reusable. It's just a blend or puree of all the herbs along with seasoning peppers and garlic and all that we like using as a marinade for just about all of our dishes, and a bit of sea salt. Just gonna hit that a quick mix. And we don't want to allow this to marinate for long because I don't want to cook the lobster nor the shrimp with the marinade and that lemon juice. The time it takes us to do the next step, which is to remove all of the crab as well as the lobster claws from the pot and swizzle the pot, you'll see what I'm talking about, is as long as it will take to marinate this. As I mentioned earlier, it's been going for an hour and a half, so 90 minutes. And I have been stirring it every 15 minutes or so. It's got a lovely texture, but you know, you can leave this as it is here. Yeah, I grew up the way mommy would make it. It would be more, it wouldn't be as chunky as this, let's just say. Yeah, so what we need to do is what we call swizzle, and this is the old school swizzle stick. It's a long handle with the sort of edges on the bottom here, and all we would do is a back and forth motion. But to be able to do it, we need to remove all the lobster claws, like so. We're gonna remove all of this and all of the crab, and I'm gonna set it aside in a bowl here. Just be careful when you're removing the stuff out of the pot here, and you can see I'm just tossing it into this bowl. I just don't want it to be making a mess all over the place. The last thing I want you to do is to get burned doing this stuff. For a little bit of the callaloo, the thicker pieces of spinach and all that got into it. No scene, don't make that a problem, man. Anyhow, we're just gonna continue removing all the claws and all that. Just gonna give that a quick once over to make sure I don't have any claws or legs, anything in there. If you haven't already guessed, I did smash that Scotch bonnet pepper because, like I mentioned earlier, I wanted with a bit of kick, a little Caribbean sunshine good. So in goes the swizzle stick, and with a back and forth motion while hugging the stick. Boom. That is how we break this down. This is the old school traditional way with the swizzle stick. I believe some people call it a dal Whitney as well. And if you don't have a swizzle stick and you want to use your immersion blender, a stick blender, what I would recommend doing is, yeah, you can use it, but pulse. Psst, psst, psst. If you go continuous, what will happen is the callaloo will become frothy, and you could just ruin an entirely delicious dish by changing the texture of it with froth. So I'm just going to continue here for about a minute or two, just until I get it to the consistency and texture that I like. And that is a sort of a personalization sort of thing you will need to do as well. Just wrapping it up now. I'm going to remove that out of the sink, out of the pot, put it into the sink. And now is where we're going to add the seasoned shrimp and lobster pieces to the pot. We're gonna hit it a stir, and we're just gonna leave that on that low heat for about 3 minutes. Then we're gonna add back the lobster claws as well as the crab, because it won't take long to cook, yeah? And we don't want to overcook anything. I'm trying to ruin all the dinner. So, you know, listen up, ladies and gentlemen. Not too long, eh? At this point, what I would do is, after about a minute, allow the seasoned shrimp and lobster to make its way in there. Then you would go in, hit it a taste, and adjust the salt, because we're pretty much done. It's just to add back the crab and the claw. Sub soldiers, listen, if you enjoy this recipe, I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and click that bell notification thing. If you've made the recipe, take a picture and send it to me. Email address down here. I mean, trying to tell people the email address, them bots will take the address and do all kind of thing with it. And tag me on Instagram at caribbeanpot. I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for being in my kitchen with me today. Irie? Irie. See if I can see one of the shrimp pieces to show you all. Oh, shrimpy shrimp. Nice big pieces of lobster. There you go. Notice the color the shrimp took on there. That is one of the stems of the dashing bush. And this is the reason why I don't like using the stems, because it's hard to break down. At this point, back goes all the other niceties that belongs in this ultimate seafood callaloo that we just did. Just tuck that in there. And ladies and gentlemen, you're all done. The ultimate seafood callaloo. Turn off your stove because we don't want to overcook the lobster and the shrimp. If you wanted to add some chunks of white ocean fish in there, you can do that at the end when I added the shrimp and the let me turn off the stove, and the lobster. If you wanted to add some scallops, you can do that as well. Chris here, caribbeanpot.com. Always a pleasure having you all here in the kitchen with me. I give you my take on the ultimate seafood callaloo. Like I said, I've done crab callaloo, salted pigtail, salted beef, vegan. We've done lobster callaloo, and I've done a shrimp callaloo. Put them all together and this is what you get. Irie, I do apologize for the long video though, but like I said, I wanted to explain everything to you all. What's up, soldiers? Don't forget to click subscribe. If you've already clicked subscribe, hit that bell notification thing. I want to all you missing out on the new videos, man. Come on, click.